Yeah.
Hello, everyone. Good morning. Oh, afternoon. It's afternoon now.
Yeah,
Wow.
already.
How are you doing, Dr. Manny?
I'm great, Gertrude. How are you?
I am easing into the day. So yeah, it's I definitely got to sleep past my usual internal clock
Yeah.
awake time.
Yeah.
I just allowed myself to rest today. I'm usually like, what's next? What's next? Let me do this. Let me do that. Busy, busy, busy. So I allowed myself to rest.
Good, good. Yeah. Not me on Saturdays.
No.
Not me on Saturdays. Saturdays, I'll be like, what? How important is it? My kids know to help each other out downstairs. I'm like, there's a four of y'all. If y'all can't survive together, there's nothing I can do down there to help you. Good luck.
Oh my gosh.
You don't have to wake me up on Saturday. Yep.
Oh,
Yep. So we got a great topic.
yes, we do.
Awesome and very important topic. I started addressing this a little bit before the holidays, and I think it's important to carry the theme throughout the year because ultimately, when we're triggered, we end up out of character, we end up out of integrity, we end up with negative feelings, and we feel like we're out of alignment, out of purpose, living in a shadow state, which is sort of a state where we feel guilty, ashamed, jealous, competitive, a sense of scarcity.
Yes.
So the goal today is to look at, I want to just explore some of the core concepts around how we get triggered, how our boundaries get violated, and ways that we can reestablish integrity, a sense of peace, a sense of control of our own story, even when we're dealing with people who tend to be on the toxic, manipulative edge. And really, even when we're dealing with the impact of people who have shown up in our lives in the past during our formative years and had an impact on our sense of worth, our sense of efficacy, our sense of our internal locus of control. So in the work that I do, sometimes we call this reparenting, which essentially is sort of a hat tip to the idea that there are certain things that certain needs and skills that were supposed to be met and taught by our parents. And if our parents didn't have them taught to them, and that it never makes it to us. And when those things come up, there's a sense of shame throughout all of family. Now, that sense of shame, when we go out in the real world, we continue to be a person who is used to not having those needs met and used to not having our boundaries honored because we were in an environment that was perpetually in a fight, flight, freeze, faint, a scarcity environment, maybe a poverty environment, maybe
or even the last F that you mentioned 2 sessions ago, because sometimes you might have a parent that deals with things through, promiscuity. So they might use that as well.
Yeah. If you have whatever maladaptive techniques are being used in your home, these are the strategies that you've automatically embedded implicitly in yourself. Yourself being the story you tell yourself about yourself, your identity narrative. Now, when your identity narrative is triggered, it activates ego. And ego is where the word boundaries actually comes from, because it's ego boundaries. And what it really means is it's boundaries within this imaginary space that we create around our self-concept. What does that mean? That means that when you're walking around throughout the day, you're interacting with people, and these people let you in and they reflect you to the extent that they're capable of. We choose people who, and we often say who vibrate at our frequency, because two objects will always drop the lowest frequency. So if you tend to attract people who are usually in a bad mood or usually complaining about the world, it's maybe you either like it or you're doing it too subconsciously on a level where even in between the positive talk, you're slipping that in. So, I want to get really clear on, again, the idea of boundaries is psychic boundaries. When we're,
what do you mean by that? What do you mean by that?
Psychic boundaries, exactly. Now, we have physical boundaries. If I'm sitting here, I can do this and take up more space. And that lets people know, get up off me, Now, we all grew up in environments where there's a certain amount of space we were allowed. It might
Oh my gosh.
be a lot of brothers and sisters next to each other. It may be you had to share a room.
Mm-hmm.
It may be that on physical boundaries and decision boundaries, it may be you had hand-me-down clothes, so you never actually got to express your values,
your own style.
Exactly.
Your own freedom. And sometimes people view getting or choosing their own clothes as a way of expressing themselves. So
that's symbolic self-completion. Anything that you keep around you that takes effort to keep around you, or that you've created a habit that it shows up around you anyway, sort of autopilot, this is your unconscious mind doing work for you, is part of you. It's part of how you keep a certain sense of truth and integrity in the world. The word integrity will come back up later as the third part of this discussion, just sort of as some foreshadowing. So now your boundaries, the story that you tell yourself is based on a vision that you have of yourself and the degree to which you believe that vision contains your values.
Oh my gosh.
Yep. We get triggered when something happens that is out of alignment with the vision and the values embedded in it. Like, I'll give you an example. Let's say we're planning a trip to, and I'm talking trips because it's been a while since I've actually planned a trip. So if we're going to fantasize, let's go big or go home. Let's go really big. Let's say we were planning a cruise because since Carnival, early in the pandemic, remember it was like, oh, this cruise got it. This cruise got it.
Oh yes, I was hearing that. Even within my circles, there was somebody I knew that just got off of a cruise.
Yeah.
And I hosted them at my house like the week after their cruise.
Yeah.
And we were hearing buzz about Corona this, Corona that. I'm just like, wait, hold on.
Yeah.
It was at the point where people weren't getting tested, and in New York, Governor Cuomo hadn't yet done those like free testing sites and stuff.
Yeah.
So I had him at my house. He tells us like a week or two later that he has Corona. I'm like, oh my gosh.
Yeah, that's good.
I never had Corona.
Good.
By the grace of God. But yeah, people were, no one in the house no one who came to my house had Corona after it. So it wasn't from my house that it was spread, it's from his workplace. So
good. Glad you're safe.
Thank you.
Yeah. So Corona made cruises a trigger word where the whole idea of, I'm going to escape to a cruise to be off somewhere and have fun, just away from the world, no cell phones, or whatever. That used to be a fun thing to think about. That was a valuable idea. Okay. Now, when let's say I decided, let's pretend the world opens back up and they say cruises are going to be okay. Cruises are going to be fine. We've got vaccines. I'm talking about real big dreaming beyond suspension of disbelief, because the reason I'm going this far out there is because when we value something, we want to remain optimistic that somehow or other it's going to come back around. That's part of allowing me to have my vision. What often happens with other people, though, is they violate your vision and boundaries, telling you to be realistic or have common sense.
Let's talk about this. Let's sit on this topic because especially after the inauguration this Wednesday, people are complaining that President Biden is too optimistic and he was too hopeful. But my view is that as a leader, your role is to vision cast. Yes, speak of what will be. We might not be here, but we hope to be here. With Martin Luther King, he spoke about something that didn't exist currently, but he had a dream of what he would hope society would be later, and it's come to pass in a certain extent. But I'm hearing, whether it's on Clubhouse or even on the news, that people are ripping him to shreds for being hopeful and unrealistic, even though he mentioned within his speech that yes, the insurrection did happen on this date, and yes, this has happened, and there are things we need to overcome. There are deaths still rising and things like that, but we will overcome with unity. People are flipping out at this word. They're triggered by this word unity. They want a war. People are like, no, there's not enough drama. No.
And when we're creating our values, one of the important things when deciding values is whether you decide to value something intrinsic to your group, which is optimistic, positive thing, because ultimately, whatever we do together around the shared value. We've brought that value into manifestation in that social space, in that field.
It has to be valued.
Yeah. Now, another group of people are able to cast value by going against something else, Now, anytime you have a group that has an anti-value, anti-Black, anti-woman, anti-Jewish, anti-male,
anti-establishment.
Once you're against something, then basically you're not really casting your vision. You're casting sort of a reactivity to someone else's vision. And as such, you still have, it's not an internal locus of control. It's an introjected value. Because essentially, if you grew up in an environment where your values and boundaries were violated with someone else with a sense of fear, because if we're not vision casting, we're driven by one or two approaches in our biological system. We have an approach and an avoid system. We're pulled towards something or we're pushed away from something. You could either be inspired by the vision and how your values are embedded in it, or you could be triggered and inspired by fear.
Oh my God.
When fear is activated, ego gets activated. When ego gets activated, the ego starts telling you a story based off scarcity, a status-based story. And you have to cling to that story and whatever aspects of it maintain your vision in the future. Because in your mind, the second you lose that story, you end up in someone else's story. And in their story, your priorities are not honored because values are only valuable because they let your subconscious mind do some subconscious computing. Those of us who have a clear vision and are our values, not just aware of our values, but have our values prioritized in our story.
Have you ever thought about couples counseling, like premarital couples counseling or even dating counseling? Because this topic right here is something that I think a lot of people who are dating or thinking about marriage would benefit from.
Yep. And well, I'll do a plug then.
Hey.
One of the groups that's in the ideation phase right now is one of my wife's colleagues from her PhD, that's her psych PhD program, has this amazing product, and it's Love is a Verb product. And some people have been asking me to create some groups in Mayhem. So one of the upcoming groups is that because I have been getting a lot of requests from people in terms of like doing more of the relationship stuff.
Yes.
I won't say but because I appreciate those. And I do want to do something like that, but it'll be more a group thing. I think this is the space that, and this is giving you guys more of the kind of foresight of what is coming further down the line as we start to do Mayhem live events. First place we're looking at is possibly hedonism. I don't know how much in the comments you guys are reading. The events we do at Hedo and stuff, a lot of the stuff we'll have is relationship related and obviously sex and stuff related, sex advice and stuff. So we're looking in the space of what it takes to have a whole experience as a human, and as a hedonist at heart and spirit. When in doubt, how can we make it through this journey with as many good feelings and as much optimism as possible? Your pessimists are also occasionally nihilists, people who kind of feel as if they got the short end of the existential lottery. And as such, anytime they see someone else projecting optimism, projecting confidence, projecting a belief in an internal locus of control, a belief that we can have an impact in the world, they get triggered. They get triggered into the scarcity and urgency. Keep in mind that cultural conditioning is about scarcity and urgency, which activates ego with fear. I'm not going to get enough because I'm not important enough in the group. So when the group as a whole actually gets the reward that we all work towards together, the sense of goodness has to be checked. You're like, okay, the tribe is eating. Do I deserve to cut to the front of the line? Now, this is where status is implicit. If you have a story that your whole life you could never please people enough to be deserving to get to the front of the line because you were in a fake system, if your whole life you were raised in an environment where it was like hurry up to wait, and as such, preparedness, flow state, presence, focus on task, deliberate practice, commitment, and integrity were not honored, or you had those boundaries violated in different places where people made you promises and then their intentions underneath were not in alignment, then these are the spaces where you get triggered. We get triggered in places where we were wounded before. We get wounded when we're misunderstood or when we're deceived by those who pretend to understand us. And in the course of them communicating to us that they understand us, we become increasingly vulnerable and we increase the level of disclosure within that social field, within that dyad, with that one person. Now, what that does is it makes us susceptible to more disclosure, and it decreases our guard against disgust, because disgust is one of the emotions that we use to keep people away. When people do stuff that disgust you, when they violate your boundaries, we have a disgust response. And what that's
not aligning with your values. It's like, ooh, this
exactly. is yeah. We have this thing called imaginative resistance. Sometimes you hear it called resistance, where it's that even imagining certain things is uncomfortable. You don't want to activate those circuits. One example we used to have in my psychiatry unit, my VA unit back in Miami when I was doing my residency, my psych residency was in the VA hospital. It used to be you don't make any loud noises. You know, some of the meaner nurses would clown that if you slammed the tray down, you could probably hear 4 patients jumping under their beds because of the PTSD. You know,
I actually went through something similar to that because when my parents were having their fights and things like that, the doors would slam.
Yeah.
And I don't know how many years that lasted, but like I would be like,
yeah,
oh my gosh, don't do that. Please don't do that. Because like in movies, you know how movies can depict like when someone's sent back to something. It happens, you know, in our minds sometimes, but I'm grateful that I've healed from that. I don't really hear people slamming doors, period. But when it does happen, it's not really like as much of a trigger or a wound. I think it's now a scar that I can now speak about, and I can now, you know, even be like, I can relate. I understand. I once was there, but now I'm healed, and you can too be healed from that. So
and that's the power of, you know, coming in touch with the meaning of something.
Yeah,
taken back to a place like that, like the slamming door, maybe it used to remind you, and anything that we get reminded of meaning. You know, what does a slamming door mean? Boom. To a child, it meant danger. You know, and it's danger at a level beyond your level to understand. A door slam, you know, a door could be the last door that got slammed before a divorce that tore your life apart, where your family was your parents were no longer together. You know, that could be the door that got slammed before some physical altercations and all these different things. You know?
Oh yeah, or discipline.
Yeah.
That's what movies don't show you. In some movies, they don't show you the abuse, but they show you the door.
Like
I have to fast forward past some of those stuff. I'm just like, no, I don't want to hear it. I don't want to listen to it. I don't want to watch it.
Yeah, because you know the implication.
Yeah,
it activates what's called your implicative working memory, which is part of your brain that says, "What does this mean?" When we get triggered, the implicative working memory gets activated more than what's called the propositional working memory.
Yeah.
Propositional working memory is, you know, what are these sentences and what are they saying, which is closer to a reality. Implicative working memory is what does it mean? And then I'm going inside my head and trying to guess someone else's intention, which immediately creates multiple layers of distortion. Now, we get triggered when we were trained and conditioned by people who, anytime you stepped inside their head, there was threat, noise, rejection, humiliation, shame. You know, so
how do you speak to somebody who's in that? You mentioned that sometimes they have like an invisible disgust.
Yeah. You know? But that's part 3.
Okay, that's part 3.
We're gonna get to that part. Yep.
Right, okay.
Though. Yep. There are ways, and even I'm gonna deepen your question. Not how do you speak to somebody in that state. How do you recognize when you're in that state?
Yeah.
Notice how you're speaking to people, and how you're filtering in your mind, and thus imagining how people speak to you.
Oh my gosh!
You're triggered. When I'm triggered, everything sounds like an attack. It's the same as you just got you just had a bee land on you. Everything sounds like a bee buzz. It's the same with triggering. Once you've crossed a certain threshold, your prefrontal cortex, the part that represents a social reality, compassion, empathy, playfulness, attraction, bonding, all the oxytocin related stuff shuts down, and your whole amygdala, the part of your brain that signals intense emotions, just like intense non-narrative emotions. You can get triggered by something that feels too good.
Yes, that's true.
That's why I want to make sure I bring that up too, because shame happens when you're feeling too good in the moment as well. A lot of folks, if you're feeling undeserving, your brain taps out and starts to feel ashamed, like you're cheating the system. We're all wired on a subconscious level to do these calculations of what we believe we're deserving of. Now, this is where, by learning your values, by clarifying your values, and not just clarifying them, and this is any values test, and I'll recommend one in the comments that's reasonably good, but any values test. Actually, there's a video I did on a show with Christine back a few years ago where I walk you through the process of identifying your values. I'll put that in this comment. This was when I was doing the Saturday show in DC. So once you have your values, you want to prioritize your values. Once you have them in order in your mind, what happens is now you can walk in the world noticing when your boundaries are violated, when your values are being stepped on, or when someone is using either scarcity or urgency to overcome what's important. And I think this was in Stephen Covey's 7 Highly Effective People, where he talks about the behavior square. And I won't get into it, but there's a combination of importance and urgency that allows you to be in alignment with your goals, as opposed to allowing someone's urgency from their frame of reference to violate your boundaries of the reality you've created in the personal narrative you tell yourself, to the point where you're doing things for other people, and each day you're ending your day with a feeling of unfulfilled, not walking in your purpose, not feeling as if you had contributed as much to the world as you could have, and possibly a feeling of being alone and lonely and surrounded by people who don't value you. Because as long as ego is activated, you're going to be in a state where you're feeling under social threat. That's the nature of ego activation. This constant, hungry, habitual narrative that needs constant attention, constant validation, constant reassurance, expresses this insecurity and fear of falling.
Or even isolation, because I'm just thinking about what you're saying of people who are feeling like they don't have, something to contribute, or something to, say that they're of value in the world. Sometimes people refrain from friendships, or refrain from reaching out to people because they don't have, that brag story, or they don't have, because people are going to ask you, how have you been? Some people view phone calls as updates on life events, and what you're still in a place where you last were. And people are like, oh, I'm in the Dominican Republic, living, my dream job, or I'm here. You're like, I am in fill in the blank, and but being able to value where you are, appreciate, and be grateful for where you are, and to celebrate your small wins. Like, no, I need
small. No matter how small. This is super important. No matter how small.
Yes. Sorry.
No. It's just you made a very valid point, so I wanted to make sure I underscored it. It's just because during my depression, my win, again, I got to remind you guys, there was a time when my win was getting up out of my bed before 2 o'clock in the morning, 2 o'clock at night, in the afternoon. Because if I didn't get up, then I would be beating myself up, etc. Hold on, did I lose Gertrude? Gertrude, you still there? Oh, okay. Hopefully she'll come back in a second. But yeah, so let me go ahead and grab the second topic, since she said second part of the topic, subtopic, since she's not here. Okay, so we've talked a good bit about why you get triggered. So the next topic I want to talk about is how to play with your shadow. The idea of playing with your shadow is that once you're triggered, you find yourself in a state where you're out of control. You're usually shame ends up becoming contempt. There you go.
So I need to blow my nose. I'm sorry. I'm like, how do I do this discreetly? There's no way.
I would trumpet it. I got my tissue right here.
I am going to take your advice next time.
Let any type of piece of snot dry up and block my breathing. I'm not playing. I need oxygen to think. Ain't nobody stopping me from that.
Yeah, next time I'm going to be so prepared. I have my coffee, but I didn't have my tissue.
I do.
This is basically like a session. I should have just had like a box, It's like, you're causing me to think. You're causing me to think. You're causing us to think. Oh.
Right. Well, that's what I be telling my clients. I'm like, you got the tissue. Because a large part of it is, and that's the thing. If we get to a place where the tears come or we get in that space, that's what they mean by sit with it. You sit with it knowing that you're in a conversation with someone where it's safe. This is the nature of creating safe spaces where things come up and you get to think about them in a way where you know that in that moment when you're feeling a little weak or when you feel a little out of integrity, out of character, a person isn't going to YouTube it and play it back to you every time you argue.
That sounds like some unhealthy relationship.
It is. Bringing back old stuff is a technique for overgeneralizing and taking an argument and distorting it out of proportion. Unfortunately, a lot of us do that in the spaces where we're wounded because the space takes us back to a meaning space, to a time where we were very overwhelmed, where we were a trapped audience, where we were disempowered. So I guess go ahead and switch to the second piece because I want to go ahead. I jumped. How to play with your shadow. When we're knocked out of integrity, when we're all amygdala, we call it amygdala hijack. Yeah, because your prefrontal cortex is not working and you're all in fight, flight, freeze, faint mode. Then you go into the drama triangle. This is when you're in shadow work. I happen to specialize in shadow work because I happen to specialize in knowing when you guys, my clients and my tribe, are in trauma because we don't sound the same in trauma. And we usually, when we're in trauma, when we're triggered, when we're in shadow mode, when our trauma has been triggered, we bring the pain into the present. And whoever is there with us, basically the experience is as if it's happening now.
Oh my gosh.
So the reason we use the drama triangle, I use it as a way to teach people how to kind of identify where you are. And this is a technique called name it, tame it. And in the drama triangle, in the drama triangle, there's 3 main positions. And I talk about this a lot and I've got hours of video. And I think there's 2 goodies for us around the shadow. One is the PDF that my marketing manager, Phil, put together for you guys.
That you only can get access to if you join the Get Committed community.
Boom. That was a pitch.
That was it's exclusive for the community.
A call to action for you marketing motherfuckers out there. So what I'm doing is calling you. If you want that, you go over there. In addition to that, what we have in the works is there's an hour-long video about the drama triangle I have circulating out here, which the team is transcribing. My editor is about to get on it. Keisha is my editor. She's in Mayhem with you guys, Dr. Keisha. Enough respect. So ultimately, what you guys will have is a document with the elaborated ideas around the drama triangle, not just at the higher level of how to deal with toxic people and dysfunctional interactions and how to recognize them and maladaptive situations and interpersonal dynamics, but also how to understand yourself, how to observe yourself. Because the drama triangle, real quick, has 3 positions: victim, which is 1 down, villain, persecutor, and hero, rescuer. These are 3 positions that when we're not feeling connected to ourselves and when we're in the amygdala hijack, we automatically start doing scripts in this position. An example of the victim would be the martyr, the person who's always like doing stuff, but whining and complaining, woe is me the whole time. The point is that people like that drain energy from a system, including when you're working by yourself and you split yourself into these parts, and you start beating yourself up like the villain, the persecutor, where everything you do is not enough. Your inner critic is raging. When you're doing that, you're activating the villain part on yourself, villain, persecutor.
Wow, you could do it to yourself.
You do it to yourself. You split. And when your inner child a weaker shadow part of you comes in, when you feel like the victim, you flip from victim into villain because you go from shame, toxic shame, which is shame about the core hidden parts of you in your shadow. When you see yourself do those things, there's a guilt and shame that emerges that is so painful to contain that we project it onto outside people. This is projection and projective identification in psychology. It's emotions that you're feeling about yourself and you can't stand having them in you, so you project them onto other people. Some people project the feelings that they're ashamed of onto their kids, and then they go into rescuer mode and assume that since they haven't overcome these things yet, this is why we do the work. Since I haven't overcome it, and since my parents weren't able to overcome it, and this is how they related with me, and I find myself acting like my mother or acting like my father towards you, as such, people go into rescuer mode, which is assuming you're not going to be able to change too, because I couldn't do it. This is the family curse. This is the way we are. We have a family of alcoholics. We have a family of criminals. We have a family of men that left early. If someone's father is gone and they don't know their history, they might assume implicitly this is how we do. These are all shadow scripts that if you then decide to play or no more, if you decide you want to settle into a more mature life, monogamy, polyamory, whatever, because it's not about what you choose. It's about the fact that you chose a life and you chose to live it in integrity in the way that the people who are in that tribe live. Then you get a sense of belonging. It's the name it, tame it. You're like, okay, I'm joining this tribe. And within this tribe, I feel low status. And that's okay. I'm not going to pretend. I'm going to see what the values are of this tribe. And this is where the narrative comes into play, because the second you identify with a tribe and you start telling yourself the story of the tribe, the aspects of the tribe that are not allowed, you're going to start feeling shame about those things because that's how we were conditioned. Now, as you get older and you're out in the world doing real things, you were indoctrinated by your tribe of origin. So your shadow is all the things that you see other people doing that you were told to never do. And yet you see them winning doing it. Like with me, one of the things that was in my shadow that took a long time for me to let out, and ultimately it became the fuel, the catalyst for most of my success, was I have a really twisted sense of humor. And my sense of humor got darker and more twisted the more depressions I went into, and came out of. My sense of humor got even more twisted after spending years on psych units working with mentally ill and mentally different people. And my neurodiversity is on point because there ain't a twisted joke I ain't heard more twisted by a schizophrenic or by a bipolar or by...
They don't have any filters. You're like, whoa.
No.
That's what it looks like when humans don't have filters?
Yes. That means when you have a filter, any thought can come in at any time and you can't classify it. The purpose of our filters, and filters are your ego boundaries. Filters are when you're afraid, what you filter out so you can cope. Because when we go into freeze mode, and you're disconnecting from reality, you go into autopilot, amygdala hijack, you're still operating in a certain reality. Those of us who get angry and suppress it, who never learn how to process our anger, who say we don't get angry, and I used to say that, I don't get angry. People are like, no, you're a ragey motherfucker, Manny. And I was like, oh, for real? That narcissistic rage is out like that? It was, you become aware that you're doing these things below the radar. Once you become aware of them, and this is Eckhart Tolle. Eckhart Tolle says ego can't exist with awareness, because an observed ego in the context of awareness is now habitual mind. Because the second you could be like, oh, look at me playing the victim, you get to observe it and play with it. And then you ask yourself, why do I do this?
What do you mean by the word play?
Play. Play is about safety, a play state of mind. In mayhem, we play. We're reckless all day. We play. We come in there. It's like, okay, it's either work hard, play hard. I grew up in the work hard, play hard generation because I was in med school and I was studying when everybody else was having fun. So when I came out, I played hard. Play means that we could do things that normally would result in a loss of social status.
Does it have to be that way?
I don't know. Some people think of play as recreation. That's
why I want to understand your definition.
Yeah, play has the word recreation in it. So to me, play is any context that doesn't have implicit danger, because children initially play to learn to adjust how harsh to be. Like if you watch little puppies play with each other,
Yes.
they learn how gently to bite. Because when they bite mom and dad too hard, they get a real bite, like right back at you. You know, play, like roughhousing for kids, is an important part of them learning the strength, the sense of physical self-efficacy. You know, it's just, you need a certain amount of just doing things and being told, you know, if
there's
you
levels to roughhousing, because like I've seen brothers do it well, you know, where they're just, you know, throwing each other on the couch and wrestling on the floor, and, you know, sometimes going overboard, and like I mentioned in another session, is banging their head.
Yeah.
But like I've experienced with, you know, witnessing siblings, or even experiencing siblings, where, why did you just step on my toe? Like, what are you communicating right now?
Yeah.
Like, do you, I think in some, because it was hard for my family to see me like transform my life and become like this radical, you know, Christian that is just speaking about Jesus all the time. A part of them, or some of them, wanted to see me like flip.
Yeah.
To you know, go out of character and be like, let me see how much I can, you know.
That's what people do. That's boundary violation.
You know, I'm just like, like, although I love Jesus, I will punch you back. do not test my
boundaries.
And you know, it's like I have boundaries, even though I have values that say, you know, do not, you know, hit somebody, or do not show you, like, do not express your anger and sin, you know. But like, that hurt. How do I react when something
And that's the thing,
navigating that of like, do I punch back, or do I like be like speak about it, you know? So I'm still in that processing phase of, if someone hurts me, what do I do, and is that in alignment with my values? If that makes sense.
And this is when you decide to stay in character, and playing with your shadow is when you observe your shadow. You're like, look at me knocking this person out. And this is the thing, because if you're trying to change the behaviors, that's not how that works. We change behavior through observation and change of belief. And then what you're doing is you're observing yourself, and you're watching how you feel on the other side. If it's guilt, if it's shame, then you sit there and you get to shift it to regret. And the benefit of regret is your brain has a regret minimization engine automatically. So if you get away from shame and guilt, which are your shadow emotions, and just observe, then you can like, I regret doing that. And you know, I might get some feedback.
Yeah, we can't hear you.
Okay. Let me see if I can connect my head. Okay, how about?
Let's see. Let's try. Maybe say a sentence or something.
A sentence or something?
Yeah.
Okay. Help me. Turn Bluetooth off. Turn Bluetooth back on. It might be that I need to swap to my other headphones.
Or what if you just switch it off? I don't know.
Okay, how's that?
We can hear. I can hear you.
That's better?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. I got too many.
We're back on, y'all.
All right. So when the concept of playing with your shadow is the difference between play connotes safety. Okay. Because play, like if you're watching a child play, there's no urgency in the moment. A large part of my training when I was working with my executive coach, Kelly Flukiger, part of the training was making business play, make it fun.
Like Google does that in their business, in their building.
Yeah. You make it such that what you're doing is fun, your team is having fun, and your team is learning ridiculously fast. You know, as I've been coding video games since I was like 9. I've been programming like little.
Wow.
Yeah, and I spent like 10, 15 years in the virtual reality industry, you know, as a developer. So when we're making games, we're checking for frustration threshold. Okay. When I at one point I spent 2 years making casino games. Like I start programming slot machines to make them as addictive as possible. And then
there's a science.
Huh?
There's a science.
Absolutely. And the year before that, I was working for a lottery company. I have NDA, so I can't talk about specific stuff. But we made we were making scratch off. We were making mobile games that you use the scratch off ticket to continue to play. So the goal was to create a sense of play from the person after they lost by decreasing the frustration. When we're making slot machines, what we do is with the slot machine is we make it so that the losses feel like wins, so that you continue to play. Even as you're bleeding money, you continue to feel, you don't feel that sense of danger that goes with, oh, I just spent my whole mortgage.
Mm-hmm.
That's how we do it. To me, so when you're playing with your shadow, what you're doing is you're observing and you're surrendering the ego's tendency to judge and your ego's tendency to fear and see death everywhere. Because remember, between danger and fear is that fear has the amplification, the distortion of reality.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
During play, we put a suspension of disbelief, which means we allow ourselves in that moment to pretend that everything is fine. Mm-hmm. We allow ourselves to trust, and this is even when we're dealing in, and I'll take play to a different direction. In the BDSM life, there's play with rules. This is sexual play, but it's sexual play between two people with a very specific set of rules that they expect each other to honor. That's where
the name for, I think there's a code word that you have to say when things go.
There's a big word. Yeah, that's honestly. There is. But there is. But there's a lot of details. And ultimately, what you find is when you're involved in that way of being, is that it's a set of tools to eliminate uncertainty in a normally uncertain space. Folks who have had sexual trauma, often it's not okay to be like, whatever's going to happen is going to happen. They need you to let them know, okay, I'm going to be in a dominant role, or I'm going to have you in a dominant role. And all you need to worry about is focusing on enjoying yourself or focusing on being dominant. It's just by taking someone out of the world of, okay, this is sex and there's pressure, there's judgment, or you're being vulnerable here. We decrease the vulnerability. We give someone, scaffolding for social relating.
Scaffolding for social relating.
Yeah. And so it's something you got to practice doing by yourself. You play with your shadow. Sometimes you can bring your shadow out. One simple way to bring out your shadow is just go in the mirror and set a timer for 5 minutes. Mm-hmm. And then look eye contact in the mirror and say, I love you. And look dead in your eyes. Just stay there in your eyes and listen to what comes up. That's your shadow. Mm-hmm. Those automatic thoughts that come up when you're saying to yourself, I love you. Mm-hmm. Well, your hair doesn't look good today. Your teeth are gappier than usual. Your posture, look at your belly. All that talk, that's that shadow talk trying to push you into a state of not enoughness, state of deservedness.
Even on that topic, like being African woman who changes her hair all the time, even like in the dating world and things like that, you wonder, like, and you notice that a certain type of man is attracted to you, or like even if in a relationship, some people might be like, I like your hair when it's longer, just like passive aggressivity and stuff like that. Yeah. You as an individual who expresses yourself a certain way have to be confident in your expression, so that when somebody enters in, and with their comments or their critiques, that you can be like, no, this is something I value. This is who I am. And I am not going to, you silently change my appearance to please you and what you like the best.
Yeah.
I love me, and I love me in all my hairstyles.
Yeah.
Being able to have that sense, because if you're not confident and you don't know your values, then you will be molded and be a chameleon to the values of other people. Yeah. When they could express those things. So yeah, just in that point, it might even show you your shadow of, well, I remember when mom said, or I remember when dad said, know.
That's precisely, it takes you to a place of shame. And if you were in an environment where you were taught that shame was supposed to be something all consuming, if you grew up in a household where, instead of teaching you to be intentional, they taught you to meet expectations with constant shame. Like when you're wrong, it wasn't so much, this is where the feedback style comes in. If your parents were prone to giving you evaluative feedback, you made a mess, you worthless piece of so-and-so, if that, you worthless piece of crap, if feedback came with curse words or diminution,
yes,
of your sense of self, that self narrative, that's how they're violating your boundaries. Because feedback is supposed to be descriptive, as in, 30-degree angle change, a little bit higher, you know. Please clean this up on Tuesdays. I expected this done at 6. You still have the expectation, but you don't immediately give the expectation the negative emotional valence, which is an insult. Yeah. And an insult knocks a person into their past because basically, usually when you're insulting someone, you're insulting them by projecting your values on them, because if it was something that they valued and that they were able to get to the values, then instead of insulting them, you would be talking specifically about the shared vision and helping them see more clearly what are the steps they need to take to get there. Anything else is knocking you out of character, creating that frustration that I told you that we always minimize when we're at play, and not allowing for observation, because it's activating ego through fear. And when ego is activating fear, you're no longer seeing the true danger, because ego narration is the mechanism of distortion. The story your brain makes up, you believe. That's why when we're looking in the mirror and we say, I love you, everything that you've learned, you've taught yourself to say, to buffer and push away and disbelieve and devalue the I love you, and possibly the person who said it. Anytime he says that, he's going to take it back. Well, he says he loves me, except for when he's mad. He loves me conditionally. Therefore, I can't trust his love to always be there.
That's huge.
Yeah.
When you mentioned in the comments that likes the mirror technique.
You say what?
Phil mentioned in the comments that he likes the mirror technique.
Yeah, the mirror technique is potent. 5 minutes of that every day when you're down at the bottom, and you'll bring up everything from the bottom. When I after I had like lost my businesses and stuff, and basically all the aspects of my life that gave me status, I remember I used to be in the mirror, and like at first I avoided doing it, because when my mentor gave it to me as an assignment, my coach at the time, I was like, I'm not doing that crap. And then my brain went to, oh, that sounds stupid. What would I do that for? But then I started doing it, and I realized how painful it was to even get the words out, because even as I was saying it, I can feel the parts of me it was an opportunity for me to berate myself. And if you're berating yourself, the person that you should be trusting the most in the world, with this inner critic, then when other people are saying positive things to you, you're deflecting that shit like kung fu. So you want to train yourself with that mirror experience to be aware of these voices that are coming up all day, and the way they're treating you and how quick they come up. Because when you teach yourself to think faster and faster, which is basically like, my thing has always been like, the key to performing at a genius level is thinking the right thoughts as fast as possible. So you just become this efficient, effective problem solver, Before you can do any of that, you got to see the true problem. Ego and fear don't allow you to do that. Your shadow doesn't allow you to believe that you're capable, because it takes up all your brain space with this noise, and you just want to get it done for peace of mind. This is where you're sitting there procrastinating in your shadow, guilting yourself because you're not doing it. You're actually affirming the negative. You're sitting there like, look at me procrastinating. I'm not even trying to do that paper. I'm procrastinating the paper. I'm doing everything else but the paper. I'm thinking about everything else but the paper. Yeah, you're driving it with the self-talk. That's your shadow. I'm doing everything else for the paper. Really? How can I change that? Well, I can go sit at the desk where I usually do the paper. Okay, now I'm sitting at the desk. Oh, I'm surfing Facebook. Okay, how can I fix that? Let me shut off the Facebook. Or you can go to the talk about, I always do this. I know how this is going to end. I'm going to end up not ready. I'm going to end up staying up all night like I always do. Let me get some more coffee. But that's going to keep me up all night. That's jittery.
That would be this week.
You got to look at the feelings you're going through. That's the shadow is in the feelings that come up from the past, because every moment should feel good.
Don't you ever catch yourself in this internal dialogue where you're like, I know exactly why I'm taking this second cup.
Yeah.
I have a pending conversation with fill in the blank that is making me, want to bake these cookies, drink this coffee, just, eat this snack. Whatever it is your coping mechanism is, sometimes you're watching yourself doing it and you're like, I know exactly why I'm doing this.
That's playing with your shadow. That's the observation.
But is that playing with it, or is it this play. I don't know how to define it. So
how are you feeling while you're doing it?
How you're feeling when you're doing it.
If you're feeling good, then you're playing. If it's fun, then you're playing. If you're curious, then you're playing. If you're judging and you're feeling terrible and you don't want to be there, then you're doing work.
Mm-hmm.
You know. Now, here's where it gets interesting.
Okay.
When you're in alignment, then the work comes to feel like play.
If you're in alignment, then the work feels like play.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I feel with working with you and working as, you know, this virtual assistant. This has been, I like this job.
Thank you.
It doesn't feel like a job because I'm just like, I enjoy the people I work for and with and things like that. And I'm like, okay, it's a pleasure for me to do the work because, you know, it doesn't feel like work. And, you know, I'm seeing this business grow and impact people. I'm like, wow, this is great.
Boom. That's how I get you to work your ass off.
It's by design, I'm guessing.
Why do you think the team gets so much done? Y'all be like, oh, go check Mayhem? Okay. All right, I've checked on the menu. Looks good in here. I'm like, awesome.
Oh gosh.
Yeah, you're like, oh, an hour talk? Let's do that. Okay. You know, I mean, if it ain't fun, then something's out of alignment. You know, and I told you during our vetting process, anyone that's treating you like crap don't need to be working with me.
Yeah.
If a person can't come to our environment and heal, grow, and thrive, while keeping us safe, then they need to do it elsewhere.
Yeah.
You know,
exactly.
You're not paying me your money to abuse me. You're not paying me your money to abuse my team. That's not how we do it. Boundary.
Stay in a stuck state.
Yeah, that's a boundary.
The tools that you provide, people are investing in them because they have a belief or they believe that they will work.
Yeah.
If they're not working for you, then you have not been applying it, and you need to take responsibility for that.
Yeah, and
so that's coming precision mindset because they're seeing and they're hearing testimonies or what do you call it, reviews from people like my business or my life has excelled because what I've experienced. So yeah.
And ultimately, it's because I mean, it's the hedonism in me. You know, if something is feeling bad, ask yourself, why is it feeling bad? This is the difference between pain and suffering. You know, pain is ouch, that feels bad. Suffering is ouch, that feels bad, and I'm deserving. It always happens to me. While this shit is still feeling bad, stop. Stop. You know, get curious about why it feels bad, and get curious about why you keep doing it if it continues to feel bad. You know, a large part of me playing with my shadow was observing myself during my hangovers back in my stuck drinking days, like where I was drinking to hide and escape, you know, to manage suffering. And a large part of what came to be was watching myself the day after my drinking and what it allowed me. It allowed me to stay in the stuck place with the excuse that I couldn't think of how to get out of here. Which was more a matter of ultimately it came to be a fear. The fear was, you know, the darkness was overshadowing, you know, what could be waiting out here for me if I came back to life, you know, because in any depression, you always wonder, is this the time that, you know, I can't make it back? Like, have I fried enough of my circuits where I won't be able to enjoy my memories or feel valuable or you know, just want to be around people? Because with my depression, I get like pretty severe social anxiety, including agoraphobia and panic attacks. You know, so part of learning to observe for me was, what are the things that I'm willing to replace with a combination of being drunk, loud, slurred, and rude, and you losing a day the next day, feeling like crap until afternoon. And you observe it and you realize what you're hiding from. And what I was hiding from was the failure to meet my potential. You know? Because
some people hide from the success.
Yeah.
The fear of success and not being able to handle it. But I think the solution for that is I can build a team.
Yeah.
It's not all on me, you know.
Well, that was an important part for me too.
Sorry?
That was a super important part for me too, because once you became part of the team and stuff started moving and we brought the other team members on, it just became a system.
Mm-hmm.
And as such, it wasn't about when things weren't going right. I didn't have to go into ego and paralysis and sitting there in my head wondering why I failed yet again. Or a matter of, let me call up Gertrude, let me call up Bill, let me see where in the machine things aren't rolling. Or let me talk to some of my clients and see if they're getting the results.
Yes.
Let me check on the people who are hiding and see if they're hiding because it's working too well, or they're hiding because it's not working. So basically, it's the play thing that makes it important, and acknowledging your shadow instead of hiding it and suppressing it and feeling less powerful. Because your shadow parts, your alter ego, actually will bring you closer to people a lot faster, because play is way more attractive than work. If people see you working, they're not prone to come around. But if people see you having fun, they'll be like, "Hey, what y'all doing over there?" I think, was it Mark Twain, Tom Sawyer, where he was painting the fence and Huck Finn came up and he was like, "What? I'm having so much fun. I can't let you do it. I'm having all this fun." And then ultimately he was like, "Well, I'd have to charge you some money to do it." And ultimately he ended up having dude do his job and he went off to play.
Wow.
So ultimately, if you make the work look like fun and take the fear away, ultimately, I like to call it turning your demons into your muses, because your shadow is parts of you that you're not accepting. So anytime they come up, you go into a negative emotion, you criticize, you shut them down, you suppress. As you allow those feelings to come up and actually feel them, we have an opportunity to do a separation where you have body and you have mind. They're a unit, but they're a unit with two different modules. So you can say to yourself, I'm going to relax my body. And you do that by noticing what is tightening up. Of course, that means you have to focus away from all the noise in your mind, like I'm scared, I'm overwhelmed, etc. You got to ground. Basic breathing exercises are the most powerful grounding tool. Because you always have your lungs with you. So anytime you need grounding, you can go hide in a public bathroom. You can go hide in your car.
Done that bathroom hide thing.
In med school and residency, when like your resident, I had a toxic resident who would follow me to the bathroom to discuss cases.
No, stay away from my safe space.
I'm gonna be in this toilet, and I learned to grunt really loud. You're gonna leave me alone to breathe. You're gonna leave me alone to breathe is what I'm saying. You learn to create that grounding space, breathing, and the thing about the breathing is when you're breathing, think about how the breathing feels. Don't go into the, am I doing this right? Am I doing this wrong? The purpose of the breathing is to clear your mind. Sort of like when you smell coffee beans in between like different fragrances so that you can smell the fragrance. So you're grounding yourself. You had an experience that had an aftertaste and not a great one. Okay. Or you had an experience that had too good an aftertaste that you're feeling guilty about. Because remember, feeling too good can overwhelm you and send you to guilt and shame as well. So a lot of times, those of us who have times when we have low self-worth and low self-esteem, during those times, we're vulnerable to feeling as if we're not deserving. Also, if someone negs you, knocks you into a negative state, and this is some old stuff. It's in the book, The Game, they talk about it a lot. It's an old NLP technique that pickup artists used to use, where they would give you a backhanded compliment, and it would sound like a compliment on a social level, but there'd be a part of it that would tap into your insecurities. And by tapping into your insecurities, they hook into your need for validation. So then they would basically, there was the whole technique. They would neg you, and then they would show more interest in your friend, which would inspire your fight, flight, and your ego.
That is a trigger for me.
Yeah.
That is a trigger for me.
That's what it is. It's a pickup trigger. So
man,
those kind of things can lead to situations where you end up physically active with someone as a result of the rejection and the compulsion. They're hitting your rejection sensitivity, which overrides you to forget that you're not even interested in this dude or this lady. It's more about the fact that they rejected you now, and you can't stand to be rejected. The Game, Penetrating the Secret Society. I've got that on audiobook. I've listened to it a bunch of times. It was one of my first NLP hypnosis books. It was when I was having trouble believing that the work would work.
That work would work?
Yeah, because the Game was a malicious use of NLP and hypnosis, because these guys were basically walking up the boulevards in all these major cities, picking up and exploiting women with these techniques.
Welcome, Catherine. And
hey, Catherine. Is it? Thanks for joining. So grounding is important because you're going to be triggered. Negs are a way to trigger you into this ego state where you're telling yourself these scary stories. Once you're grounded, and you know you're grounded because you're thinking mainly about your breath and how it feels. You're feeling the breath instead of being in your head and thinking about the event, whether it was an overly arousing good event that you're now feeling bad about and unworthy, or whether it was overly arousing negative event that has you feeling unworthy and incapable of activating your values. That's grounding. Centering is order of operations. You ground before you center, because if you're not grounded, you're not present, you're not in your body, you're in your head, you're in those thoughts, and you're spinning around, which is not productive. Now, once you realize that you're not in the thoughts, you're able to feel the body. From there, instead of going back into the thoughts, which were activating the cascade in the body, you choose instead from the place.
Oh, you pause. Dr. Manny? Okay, so Dr. Manny, his video just paused, but I'll wait till his video comes back again. We're nearing an hour, and
it disconnected me. Huh?
Okay, so you were speaking about being in your mind. How much time do you want to go till we can set a time?
Let's go about 5 more minutes. We'll wrap because it's an hour, and an hour is more than enough for a Saturday. Yeah. I want to target closer to I don't know. Most of them, let's shoot for 20 minutes.
Really?
How
you would have for 20 minutes?
Let's ask Mayhem how long these should be, because I'm down for whatever, I mean, we're coming once a week. I'm not gonna cut a convo short. I'm gonna pour out what we need for the week. That's my mindset.
Okay.
So ultimately, the last part is the centering. Once you're grounded, which means you're able to feel your body, feel in your body without popping up and dissociating into these thoughts and anger. When you're able to be present here and now, with the people that are with you instead of projecting onto others, then pull up the things that you love. Yeah. And one practice I have my clients do is every morning pull up the things that you love so that they're accessible. The relationships that are most meaning to you, because that way you'll remember, that's basically prioritizing. Who are the people that I want to think about today? And sometimes you want to think about the people who you don't want to think about, but you need to think about. Sometimes there's a meeting with a colleague who you don't like, but you need to be most efficacious with. So you pull that person up in your mind, you let it feel bad, but then you return to your intention. You return to your values instead of your expectation, the expectation that they're going to trigger you again. So
in that centering is love. Because there was a season where I had like a crippling fear of losing the people that I loved. Yeah. So every time that I experienced immense love welling in my heart for my family members, I'm like there would be something that would split in my mind and be like, oh my gosh, I might lose them because I love them so much. I will lose them. That's why we need to be careful about the songs that we sing, because it says, I want to love you like I'm going to lose you. No, don't think about that, because
that's triggering scarcity.
I don't want to think about that. So every time that I've learned that every time that wells up in me of like loss because I love so hard, is to be like, no, I can enjoy the time that I have with them now. Because that's what they need from me is me being present and loving them the best I can right now, and not.
Sure. Yep. Eckhart Tolle says that love exists at the frequency of presence. Love is
that's beautiful.
Yeah. So when you ground, you're eliminating the noise in your emotional potential space. When you center, you're sending the energy back to your prefrontal cortex, your ventral medial prefrontal cortex, where you represent value. Then you're in integrity because now your brain is back online. And guess what? You can still make bad decisions when your brain is back online, but at least you're making bad decisions. You know, you're like, okay, I made a bad decision because you're not as compulsive. And the thing is, a lot of times we get knocked back into that triggered state when we're like, oh, I tried and this is what I did. I made a mistake. Honor your mistakes. Oh, I did this and it was a bad decision. Honor your bad decisions.
Oh, what do you mean by honor your bad decisions?
What did you learn from the bad decision? Now you have an experience.
The growth mindset is that I am not my bad decision. That is my identity.
Yeah.
Me as a human being, I can make bad decisions, you know, and people who I respect and hold high, they have the capacity to make a bad decision too. So the same grace and the same self-forgiveness that I will receive. Pardon?
Yeah.
The same.
I'm making bad decisions all day.
Oh,
that's what I do.
That about you, Dr. Manny? No.
I do that. I just use analytics. Like all day long. I'm picking every decision I make to post a meme. I'm like, yeah, probably shouldn't say this out loud.
Oh, but it's the nature of your group. It's the nature of your group.
Yeah. When we live it, the thing about having an alter ego, and Mayhem is all about alter ego. We cultivate our altar, and by having your altar, loving your altar, this is shadow work. By surrounding yourself by people who continue to be here. We've been together since May, most of us, you know, those who haven't bailed out, loyals, you know, those who haven't rejoined the normals, as we say, you know, those who haven't abandoned Mayhem for the normals. We've grown together, behaving a certain way, being ourselves. It's the authenticity in the group. You know, when a person is wounded by a joke, it's the fact that we come in like, hey, dude, that violates the boundaries. That lets people know that these are pain triggers, and it's a safe space where we're all looking for the boundaries. We're boundary testing, but we're boundary testing as a collective. And what will emerge over time, and this is what they call storm and norm in group work. You storm in, you wild out, you try to grab your status position, you try to figure out what the norms are, because the norms tell you which behaviors will get you increased status. You know, and in rational choice theory, they say norms of inclusion and norms of exclusion. Norms of inclusion are what are the behaviors in this group that are implicit expectations of value, stuff that you do. And in our group, norms of inclusion are fire memes. You know, you got to have fire memes. Like Emory Brown will say when you hit the door, what the memes do. You know, don't come up in here lurking and not adding value. Throw a meme in, even if it's just a Bernie meme you saw. Throw a Bernie meme in. You know, it's contribution at a level of truth and vulnerability, and then it's the expectation of reciprocation by honoring what you've put in. So basically, Mayhem is about shadow work. You know, because we got to do the work of shadow to clear the parts of us that we're kind of ashamed of. We joke about them, we put them out, and we realize that this group of people watching us make these bad decisions together, you know, we're loyal. You know, of course, the risk in a group like this is, okay, we get disloyal people. And the beauty of that is with a tribe, we get to know who the disloyals are pretty quickly. Out the gate, some people were betraying, some people were judging, some people were talking about stuff in Mayhem outside, and it gets back to us. The information gets back quick. So the safety of the tribe allows us to do the shadow work. The shadow work allows us to ground and center, because when we look at the parts of us that we were taught not to talk about, not to expose, not to share with others, and we find ourselves loved across those parts by our tribe of choice, Asylum Mayhem, you know, by our tribe, then we have a place that we belong, even when others are insulting us. We could be stronger in our normal life. Because the alter ego is the ego you get knocked into when you're triggered. You know, the part of you that curses like a sailor, you know, the part of you that thinks curse words, even if you don't say it, the part of you that gets angry, even though you grew up in a household where anger was not allowed as an emotion. And so maybe you're a little passive aggressive, except when you drop into your altar. When you're your altar, you're a cynical, sarcastic SOB, you know, or MOB, you know, no, not MOB, daughter, DOB, daughter of a, you know, I want to make sure I got the gender.
Anyone uses that term. But it's okay. I understand.
What's good for the goose is good for the gander. You a-hole, I'll help you find the right word, and it's going to be gender appropriate. You know, so I think the main point is that when we're doing the work, it feels like play. When we're observing ourselves in spaces like Mayhem, it allows us to take these risks in this play space, in this shadow space. And I like to think of Mayhem as a cocoon because I use the butterfly metaphor. So Mayhem is where we do our cocoon talk, where we come in so that we can recharge, we can nurture each other so that we can all go out and create a larger butterfly effect.
That sounds like the movie that just came out in Christmas.
Which one?
Eddie Murphy. Was it Eddie Murphy as the cartoon actor?
Soul?
Pardon?
Soul?
Soul, yes. That wild, soul in heaven or wherever that was is like, I don't want to, screw society. I don't like this. Like, what's the point of being on earth? Like, all this stuff. And then coming to that place where I think eventually he made it, or that soul made it to earth.
Yeah.
Body or someone's body. Whatever.
She got her own body. Yeah.
Yes. So it's just like getting
him. He came back and he gave her earth pass.
Yeah. All the people who are honored by world standard, they had, we saw their different ego of like, wow.
Yeah.
You have that attitude? Like, you're that proud? Oh my gosh.
Yeah. But and there's people who like have a problem with you doing the work for them despite your expertise because they've seen you be authentic. A lot of people need you to stay in your lane, and it violates their boundaries for them to see you be real.
Yeah.
And that's unfortunate. And I actually want to bring up one point. There's Schwartz core values. Schwartz uses 10 core values that he thought were universal values across culture. So they're pretty abstract. The thing about it, he put the values on two axes, and one of the axes was more focused with self, and the other end of the axis was more focused with community. On the other axis, it was more focused with, I think, tradition and history versus more focused on expression. I think is it community and power? I might be saying that wrong, but it's Schwartz core values. I can put a link to that article as well, because the main model that I use for helping people get their power back is a model that sits on self-determination theory. And a large part of self-determination theory is about knowing your core values. Once you clarify your core values, you can realize the aspects of you that are motivated through intrinsic motivation, extrinsic motivation, motivation through identification, and even motivation through introjected values, which are other people's values that they put in you that lead to you being in this shadow state where you're defeating yourself in the time that you're not grounded and centered, activating the values that you've retrieved from within. So that's Schwartz core values. The beauty of an abstract core value set is it allows you to find values at such a high level that you can relate to and connect to the larger human condition, and then you can wild out and be yourself. Because when I did the Schwartz core value about 4 or 5 years ago, that's when I became aware that I valued benevolence and self-expression more than I valued power and status. I love status. I'm an ambitious dude, but I can't be myself. I'd rather be broke. But that being said, I sure as hell ain't gonna be broke. So I'm gonna be myself the right way, sublimate and create value.
I'm gonna share this. I don't know if you can see it.
There it is. Boom.
There it is.
Gertrude will be doing that magic, y'all. Okay. Yeah. So basically, when you're looking at it, there's two axes that you want to see. There's self-transcendence and self-enhancement. Self-enhancement is about power, hedonism, achievement. And I got to admit, I do have the hedonism vibe. I do. I value hedonism. But I like to tell myself that it's because I'm in the openness to change, because hedonism rises in the openness to change with the love of stimulation. I do love stimulation. This is mayhem. Constant stimulation. That's how my brain works. It's the ADD in me. And self-direction. If you look at self-transcendence, it's opposite to self-enhancement. Self-enhancement are the things that make your ego narration sound really good. You got power, accumulation of power, achievement. That's getting the status to make the ego the story you tell. And really, the hedonism is half in self-enhancement and half in openness to change, because a lot of times the hedonism, the fact that status feels good, achievement feels good, stimulation feels good, often leads a lot of people to stay in that self-enhancement, stay in that ego enhancement state, instead of going into self-transcendence where they're focused on the larger, the good, the tribe, the authenticity that creates a legacy that makes a longer impact. When we look at self-transcendence, which is on the other end, you'll see that certain things are on self-transcendence, like universalism and benevolence. A large part of my drive for self-transcendence came from this universalism, this belief that we are all connected to this one energetic source. This belief that even as I take on God models, when I think in terms of God, when I'm talking to someone with God, I make sure who believes in God and lives the meaning system around God, I make sure they understand that I do hold a lot of the beliefs that they do, just in a universal structure where I'm like, this person's talking about God, this person's talking about a different version of God under a different name, Allah or whatever. It's just, where have these people projected their universal into? So that's, with me, the self-transcendence came as a result of this drive towards universalism and benevolence, even as I was working in power and achievement-based tribes. Conversation, conservation versus openness to change. This is people who are motivated by tradition, conformity, and security. This tends to be people who value nostalgia, rituals, and when you break a ritual with them, because of the openness to change, those of us who like simulation, who are curious, who get interested in new things because they're different.
That's where I live all day.
Yeah, self-directed.
That's why I like working with, whether it's a startup or a business that's ready for change.
Yeah,
that excites me. I'm like, let's go. If you're ready, I'm ready. Let's go.
Right? Let's create something.
That's why the whole, looking to be hired by corporate America is something that I'm just like, do I want to be in a secure, conformed, traditional place? I don't think that's a value of mine.
It doesn't represent safety to me. Your values tell you what represents safety, because the priorities, the way you do the priorities test, especially with these 10, is you put them in an order and you ask yourself, which one would I be willing to give up?
Oh my gosh.
If you give up each one, you get to your top priority, your number one. My number one was a combination of self-expression, which is, I guess, self-direction on this particular model, self-expression and benevolence. That became to me like, that is what drives me. I was able to give up the other stuff, but honestly, security for me exists in self-direction, because I believe I'm a presence guy. I believe that I can show up somewhere, and the preparation that I've done throughout my whole life will allow me to contribute value in a space where I was not prepared for, as far as specifically prepared, just at an abstract level based off the skills I've accumulated and the experiences I've had in life.
That's why we probably like Clubhouse so much, because it's giving everyone an opportunity to contribute and bring your experiences to the table.
Yep, in the moment, exactly. But yeah, well, we're at the 1:20 mark, so I'm gonna stop talking.
Let me stop sharing screen.
Yep. So as always, I'll go ahead and put the call to action here. That means I'm calling you guys to act. So you guys, if you'd like to do schedule your one-on-one sessions, I've started scheduling gift sessions for members of Mayhem. I don't so much do gift sessions for outside, so because I bill $1,000 an hour. So give away a G. Sometimes I'd rather just say buy a new virtual reality system or some new expensive shit. But for the Tribe of Mayhem, I do one-on-one sessions, a gift session. Also, for those of you who've already made your mind up and decided you want to invest to work with me, prices just went up. Do we discuss prices in here? What are the rules about that, Gertrude? Might as well. I mean, people be coming to me with a strange look. Right now, my program, the 12-week program, is $7,500. Okay, if you come through from Mayhem, I'll take $500 off of the $7,500. Yeah, that's fair. Is that fair? $500? Should I take $750 off?
It's all up to you.
Because y'all messing with my money now. So I think with the $7,500 program, divide that by 12 to see how much that costs an hour. That's a much better deal. My 4-week program, that's 3,000. We just bumped the price up a little bit, but the way my system works is that once you paid the 3,000, your second 4 weeks when you come back are 2,500, and all updates after that, all up chunks or whatever, are 2,000. Now, let me think. Did that math work out? Because the way I've set up the math, those two numbers both add up to 7,500.
Yes.
Yeah, because if you pay in advance all at once, there's another discount I give you. But
and there's payment plans available for you as well. So during the first session at the end, you will be able to negotiate, not negotiate, but speak.
Yeah. And what we do in the first session, for those who are curious, is we help you overcome any fear you may have based off a misconception of hypnosis and what it is, because all of us are walking around hypnotized all the time. It's just a matter of becoming aware of your hypnosis. The whole talk about ego. Ego is the ultimate hypnotizer, repeating these phrases in your head all day. So the goal in the work that we do, if you're in heal mode, heal means that you're still at a place where your ego is causing you a lot of pain with narration. So a lot of your time you feel like you're suffering, stuck, mental blocks, negative self-talk, imposter syndrome, bad habits, sleep issues, addictions, alcohol, infidelity, smoking. These are the things we address if those are the things that are in your foreground, if those are the things about yourself that are bothering you most or getting in your way most. If, however, you already have a pretty good handle on those things and you're being productive, but you're just wanting to streamline your model, you want to be more effective at getting into flow state more quickly, developing the ability to focus at will, developing the ability to return to focus and reground and center automatically when things trigger you into distraction states. That is the grow part. Now, if you start in the grow part and you want to continue to work, then we end up in thrive. And here's the thing, we can go through these different contexts faster. If you find yourself starting in heal and you're healing only took a week, then we can jump right into 3 weeks of growing. And if you grow faster and you're learning these mental models and you're enacting them in your life and you're getting your results, then we go to thrive mode. Thrive mode is no excuses execution. My main role during thrive mode is accountability. Every week you show up and we shut down the bullshit. Manny, I didn't do my exercise because bullshit. Because every week we pick one thing to do and we make sure that you know exactly what it takes to do that thing. Overcome the fears, overcome the panic. If it's one of your anxiety triggers, if it's somewhere where you rage quit all the time, before we send you into battle, we send you in prepared so that you have no choice but to thrive.
Yes. That's all we need is the tools and accountability. This has been great. This has been great.
And if you guys are wondering if you want to join us, but you want more freebies, but you're ready to get committed at a freebie level, doing the stuff that we're going to start doing in the private group, the mindset group, the Get Committed group, then we will provide the Get Committed link also in the comments. Is Phil here with us still?
I don't believe so.
Okay. Well, we'll put the Get Committed group in the comments, as well as, what was the other promise I made? Oh, the episode of the TV show I did a few years ago about organizing your core values, using that same chart that I just showed you guys, except we did it for an audience of 1,500 people in 150 countries. So we did it big with lights and stuff. So I'll put that link down there. You guys can see it there. As always, I welcome your feedback. I look forward to it. Yep. So any questions you have, anything for clarification, ultimately, these videos will end up transcribed. So we will have the transcribed versions for you guys to get in PDF form over in the other group once we have your email, duh.
Yes.
Hey, dude, I'm a salesman.
And we'll have them in blog form as well. Clips of them will be posted on the social media pages, whether it may be Instagram or the Facebook page. So we're working on those. They do take time to work through because they are an hour long. So those will get posted soon.
Yeah.
Yes, this has been really nice.
Yeah, the goal is to get you what you need when you need it, so that your manifestation feels automatic, because manifestation is automatic. It's just a matter of grounding, centering, getting clear about what you want, and letting yourself know that you deserve it.
Yes, that's huge.
And you'll attract it. That's literally how this thing works. I promise that. As a former super non-believer who did the work, it took years in some cases because of my resistance. And that's the pain I intend to make sure you guys don't have to go through any longer or any more intensely than necessary. So get committed. Let's get it. Dr. Manny, I'm out.